Musun ta iikon saudo taluale butet. Butet halupati bumama godang ale butet. Asa adong da palang merah ale butet. Da palang merah ni negara ale butet. Idoge doge doge idoge idoge doge idoge doge doge idoge idoge doge.
The final keynote speaker session, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor, and it has been fun, in academic term, of course. Exploring topics and issues, and even the discussions on digital humanities. Now we have come to the final sharing, and perhaps another thought-provoking discussions on digital humanities. If you even wonder what digital humanities is, then perhaps this session is for you. So you can ask questions later on if you need to understand the basics of digital humanities. All right, my name is Irfan Rifai, and of course, it's an honor to moderate a friend of mine, to moderate a professor in digital humanities, all the way from Ohio State University in the United States. And ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Dr. Leigh Bonds.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so yeah, so that's the picture of Dr. Libon, and you see her in person right now. But let me read you. Okay, that's okay. Let me read you a little bit of her short bio. You know, if you just go to the website of the university, you can see the whole page. And I think it's just more than just one page, yeah, Dr. Libon. Yeah, we have like more than 2 or 3 pages about her CV. But let me just read you 2 paragraphs of her short bio. Dr. Libon is an associate professor in the Department of English and the Digital Humanities librarian at the Ohio State University, where she brings together 19th century literary scholarship with cutting-edge digital humanities practice. Holding a Ph.D. in English from Texas Tech University, United States, and M.A. and B.A. from Austin P. State University, she specializes in British Romantic literature, especially romantic woman writers, and the history of the book and critical bibliography. In her dual role, Dr. Bonds not only authors and edits scholarship, such as her co-editing of the Routledge Companion to Romantic Woman Writers in 2023, including the Mary Robinson entry. Okay, but also supports digital humanities initiatives at Ohio State by consulting on research and curriculum, collaborating on digital projects. That is the American Religious Sounds Project, Reading Like a Victorian, and Reclaiming Our Histories, and co-publishing on digital humanities librarianship. Yeah. So that is Dr. Libon, ladies and gentlemen. If you wish to ask further about this, you must wait until the end of the sessions, until you get a Q&A session. So Dr. Bond is going to have like 30 to 40 minutes presentation, and then you will have 20 minutes maximum to have a Q&A session. So without further ado, let me give you Dr. Leigh Bond.
End of the conference. Thank you for staying around for this and for being here for me. It means a great deal to see all of your faces out there. And thank you for that generous introduction. I'm really honored to be here. I'm honored to be giving the closing keynote this afternoon among all of you distinguished students, researchers, and teachers. I was given the topic of digital humanities pedagogy to talk about for today's session. So since many of you are students and not teachers yet, hopefully, I would like for you to think about, as I talk through, you know, everything in my presentation, I'd like for you to think about all the ways that digital humanities provides a means, an avenue for you to explore all of the research ideas, the creative expression that you are learning about in your English courses or in some of your other humanities. Basically, just teach 6 of just sound educational best practices creates the conditions in which students can learn. Digital humanities pedagogy specifically, I'm going to start at the beginning. I was a 3rd-year PhD student in the summer of 2012, and I was planning an undergraduate course in which I had hoped to introduce students to digital scholarly editing and text encoding, following the Text Encoding Initiative's guidelines for XML, essentially creating a digital edition in which specific words, terms, you know, names of people were all encoded for pretty easy searching and for for allowing for some additional text analysis. So as many of us do, I turned to the literature to find ideas for how to teach this DH practice, and I found very few discussions on DH pedagogy, and even less on how to teach DH to undergraduates in an English classroom. So without clear practical guidelines, I managed somehow to engage 2 classes in some semblance of DH work And I felt like they enjoyed thinking about text in a different way. And in the months that followed, a fellow graduate student and I proposed a special issue of this journal, the CEA Critic, which is the College English Association's journal. And we began inviting contributions from faculty in the DH community that we knew were invested in teaching it. I began listening in on the conversations about DH pedagogy in print, e-journals, tweets, blog posts, discussion forums, and in my own contribution here to this special issue, I provided an overview of published effective pedagogical practices, essentially the basics of teaching. So fast forward 5 years into 2019, and I attended the Digital Humanities Summer Institute. And while I was there, I participated in on the eve of that college work and argued the incorporation of DH work into your classroom matters and is in itself DH. In order to think through DH, he concluded, we need to think through our teaching. And it is in that space of possibility when computational methods encounter human beings that DH can reach its fullest, most radiant, most radical, and most surprising potential. So for all of you students out there, you are essential to DH. In fact, I was at the conference and DHSI to think through how to design a program at Ohio State to support the integration of DH into new and existing arts and humanities courses. A program informed by existing scholarship and on teaching strategies, curricula development, and learning outcomes. In spring 2020, I launched the DH Pedagogy Workshop Series for faculty and graduate students at Ohio State. And it's been offered in the last 5 years as a teaching endorsement through our university's Institute for Teaching and Learning. And in this workshop, I share what I've learned over the years from my own pedagogical practice and from the DH community of teachers, and how foundational educational best practices and strategies are relevant and applicable to teaching DH. What I share with you today will be something similar. I'll walk you through all that should be considered when integrating DH into a new course or an old one. Next slide. In that workshop series, I always begin with the ideas Ryan Cordell expressed in his keynote at Case Western University's Digital Scholarship Colloquium in 2014, I think, and then he later published his talk in the Debates in the Digital Humanities in 2016. As an opening gambit, I want to suggest that undergraduate students do not care about digital humanities. And in saying this, what Cordell really means is that undergrads do not care about DH qua DH. They don't care about the decades of debates about how DH is defined, what it includes, what it doesn't include. They just want to do DH. He explains students do love doing DH things when those DH things are framed around particular skills, often within disciplinary structures. He continues, I would argue more and more that the way we should integrate DH into undergraduate curriculum is as a naturalized part of what literary scholars or historians or other humanists do. And this gets to the heart of what I advocate when I teach DH pedagogy. Thinking of DH as a research practice, an approach, or a methodology to be applied to scholarly inquiry in arts and humanities disciplines enables it to be more seamlessly integrated into a course. The key is determining the right fit. So which method is most useful for exploring the course content, and more importantly, what foundational knowledge and skills do students already have that this project can tap? The integration of digital humanities at the core of a course, whether when designing a new course or restructuring an existing one, requires that the teacher pays particular attention to course goals and learning objectives. So beginning with the goals and the learning objectives ensures that DH is truly integrated into the core of a course. That means that DH isn't just an isolated activity, nor is it disconnected from all of the other content that you're learning in the class. Ultimately, introducing students to DH should provide them new ways to engage with the content. Next slide. So looking at this version of Bloom's taxonomy, anyone in education recognizes Bloom's taxonomy. This one was adapted for using technology and digital tools. And the measurable verbs listed in the higher order thinking columns most closely relate to DH practices. So take, for example, if your class is building a digital collection of materials together, collaboratively. And those materials could be texts, objects, media of any kind. In building that project, they will perform tasks from all three of these higher order thinking columns. Classifying, organizing, planning, structuring from the green column, which is the analyzing. And as they work together to define the project's directions and metadata fields, they'll perform tasks like assessing, judging, revising from the blue evaluating column, all of which are actions connected with curating items in the collection. And then building, collaborating, publishing from the gray creating column as they add their items to the platform being used for the collection. All of these verbs could effectively be used when writing course objectives or learning objectives for DH. Next slide. Within teaching, the term scaffolding is often used to describe this method of incremental learning. When learning a new skill, it can be effective to start with things that seem closest to methods with which one is already comfortable. So in a class, rather than devoting just 2 weeks to learning a specific DH method, introducing students to the method incrementally over the course of the semester actually models the way DH research is conducted. If students are mapping, for example, all of the locations where specific authors lived to imagine how often their paths crossed or how they may have been similarly influenced by their environments, you would scaffold the learning of each of these steps in the process throughout the semester. So you would teach them how to research and identify the locations, structure the initial data in a spreadsheet, locate the latitude and longitude coordinates to expand the data, and use a mapping platform to plot the coordinates and interpret the map, which could then lead back to searching and close reading texts to examine any connections of interest. So in this case, if you have all of these authors laid out in a particular area, region, or neighborhood, and you see that several of them live near each other, there could be signs or in the text that they wrote that also show those connections. So seeing it on a map sends you back to the text for close reading. Next slide. A well-designed assignment sets the stage for your students to shore up previously acquired skills, to practice new skills and concepts, to explore course content in new ways, and to produce original research in your discipline. When the assignment involves digital humanities components, it will, in addition to these goals, ask students to understand course content in relation to digital cultures and apply it to digital platforms and technologies. So when planning, it's important to determine not only how the assignment meets the course goals and the learning objectives, but also how much work will satisfy each of those learning objectives. So for example, if the class is building a digital collection project, contributing 3 or 5 items may satisfy the objectives, particularly if different steps are involved, like digitizing, transcribing, translating, and creating the metadata for each of the items. Another example, if students are mapping the locations in a novel to better understand the relationship between place and character or plot, again, contributing 2 or 3 points on the map may satisfy the objectives, particularly if students are asked to provide additional contextual information. So essentially what I'm saying is that you don't have to contribute 20 items to a collection. 3 will teach you all the skills that you need to know because you will have gone through the entire process of contributing to a collection. Similarly, it's important to consider scale when designing assignments and planning supporting instruction. If the learning objective is for students to explore how text analysis can become efficient, and using Voyant provides them a clear understanding of text analysis, what it does, what results it generates, and how to interpret those results, that can then be a foundation for learning other tools like Python or R in a later course or on your own. So by more efficient tools, I would say, web-based tools to understand what what word frequency analysis shows you or what topic modeling is. Once you understand that from an introductory or foundational level, then of course you can move on and learn Python and be able to emphasizes the process, which is fundamental in humanities learning and research, rather than delivering a product. And that, of course, moves us into assessment. Whether or not you take a radically different approach to grading altogether, it is worth being clear with students that success does not always mean getting the right answer, but instead trying something and reflecting on what they have learned. My own early DH assignments and many others that I've consulted with faculty on over the years are not assessed based on the end result. They are assessed on the reflection that students write about the process. Whether text encoding or topic modeling, mapping or collection building, having students reflect on what they did, what they found challenging, how they overcame failure, and what they learned from it, and how they see their new skills being applicable to future research, reinforces the focus on learning as a process that is essential in learning DH. Perhaps the mapping example I mentioned earlier didn't lead to any clear connections among the authors that lived in similar areas, or maybe they didn't. But that tells you something too. If, null results are also results, right? To be interpreted. The objective, after all, was focused on learning the method, the process, on discovery and experimentation, not on finding the right answer. There we go. So the focus on discovery and experimentation is essential to DH, of course. It exemplifies the student-centered active learning strategies regarded as educational best practices. Quite naturally, integrating DH into humanities courses creates, what educational scholars like Ken Bain calls the natural critical learning environment, and L.D. Fink calls significant learning experiences. By engaging students in authentic, inquiry-based tasks, working collaboratively with peers and teachers, making and doing in the same manner as DH practitioners, applying innovative methodologies and tools to answer their humanities research questions. So bringing this into the classroom creates essentially a lab for what other DH practitioners are doing in their own research. By stressing the importance of experimentation, of play and failure, and lowering the stakes of assessment, students will be more willing to take risks, to be open to trying things they may not have otherwise, and in the end, retain more learning because they actively engaged in the process. Furthermore, they will be less intimidated to continue experimenting and learning more on their own or together, and delving more into these tools to answer new research questions in their next classes. Next slide, thank you. So, by its very nature, DH is collaborative. If you attended any of the other keynotes at this conference, you will have seen a long list of collaborators on a slide, right? Because DH happens in collaboration with others. Very few individuals possess all the knowledge and the skills, both disciplinary and technical, that are needed to build a project. So learning DH by doing DH is therefore collaborative. Teaching collaborative skills in the scaffolded environment of the classroom then makes sense not only in an effort to improve students' learning outcomes, but also to equip them to succeed beyond the classroom. Experimenting and discovering together, building and learning together, provides students opportunities in the humanities classroom to develop important skills in collaboration, in working together to make project decisions, to navigate differing opinions, and to find compromise. And these are the skills that will serve you long after your studies for your degree. Next slide. And lastly, integrating DH into courses creates a very student-centered environment. The classroom is the precise place, the curiosity for what we. Many of my colleagues have learned DH in the classroom, experimenting and discovering beside their students and learning from their students. In such an environment, students can contribute the skills they have to a project and teach others. Perhaps coding or design or media creation. Students bring their own skills and talents to DH projects. Having DH in the classroom creates an environment in which they can bring their previous learning and their, developed skills. They can contribute perspectives from other courses they've taken or experiences that they've had, and that enriches the project, just as these large project teams that are, made up of humanities scholars, designers, programmers. It's the same environment. In all of these ways, the classroom becomes the model of the work being done in the DH community broadly. A rich community's questions and to better understand and represent our cultural record. Now, what kind of librarian would I be if I didn't provide you with a list of resources where you could learn more about DH pedagogy? So what we see here, DH debates, gccuny.edu. This is the one in the center, what we teach when we teach DH. It was published in 2023, and it is, I would say, an essential handbook for anyone who is interested in integrating DH into their courses. The other books around the perimeter also have chapters and significant sections that are devoted to teaching DH and to DH pedagogy. But they also is how it could possibly apply to your interests or what you're studying. This series is available online, open access. So just snap a picture of that